making a video. Probably a lot of subjects mixed in here. We'll see. Anyway, different videos, just different circumstances. I guess I should get to the Amanda thing first. I'll just point out, for all the people who only listen to the first 10 seconds of a video. Oh, I'm already too late. They're already gone. Anyway, post a link to the Tosh show. And old fans, really quite adequate performance and such. It did quite well. I don't know if it did the subject all that much good, but it was, they said the word antinatalism, so that's good. I don't know if they really coherently associated with her mission, or, there was no connection to her movie, which was a little disappointing. Or even the whole idea of people attempting to make something understood through, the mechanism of art, analogy, metaphor, storytelling, and, in a way they're just mocking that, and that part's just kind of a little disappointing. But whatever, people, yeah, I just, it's just not my kind. I don't like stand-up comics much, to tell you the truth. So, I mean, the whole, I just, I don't have much of a sense of humor anymore. South Park now and then makes me laugh, but otherwise, speaking of South Park, this Cartman guy, who's really nothing like that, but anyway, the idiot who thinks foreskin makes your penis bigger, is a nihilist, apparently, some form of nihilist, and he's making some sort of defense of nihilism, which I don't think is even at all rationally coherent. It's, again, I can't make sense of these arguments. Isn't that all you can do in terms of persuading somebody, is to make something visible and say, well, look, here's a picture. Here's dots connected. Is there some other way you can connect these dots, right? Isn't that what we're sitting here saying? Look, you're on planet Earth. There's dots to connect, things that we know. And, you're just basically arguing for a logical way to connect the dots. I mean, I think logic dictates now that there's absolutely every bit of evidence points to religion just being a fantasy, a silly story, a fable, a fairy tale, having no connection to anything real. Not real events, they're just human events. And badly told stories, not even good renderings of, they've even lost their own original purpose and intent as stories. And, so much of this stuff, I mean, everything, we just sort of getting narrower and narrower in terms of what can be perceived as reasonable belief. Astrology is no longer reasonable. Even UFO sightings, a lot of things, because people can ask logical questions now. Well, you had a cell phone, why didn't you take a picture of the aliens? So we know that people are compulsive liars, generally speaking, and storytellers, ingrandizers and embiggenizers of their own deluded little experiences, and that they want to feel important and all this kind of bullshit, and they got ego issues and all this shit. So we know there's lots of incentive to bullshit, to aggrandize the story, to make themselves into heroes, all this kind of shit. This is just a human circumstance. So we know this testimony doesn't have much value, and that all you can really do is just make an argument. Look, here's the dots, idiot. You have a counter theory? What's the counter way that you put the geological and biological and scientific evidence together and come up with anything other than evolution? Is there any other way to connect the dots? No, there's not. Evolution's the answer to the question, how did we get here? And we didn't get here yesterday or the day before yesterday, and it's not a matrix and all this stuff. So the fact that you can just make up a silly fable, okay, by adding a bunch of fake dots, well, sure, add fake dots, you can make the picture into anything. But they're fake dots. There's no reason to put them there. There's no evidence that the universe was created last Thursday, so why would you even say, well, let's pretend the universe was created last Thursday. See, the dots connect. There's no reason to do that. There's no evidence that's what happened. So it's fable. And you can't tell the difference between fables and facts. So anyway, context. So to be serious, the annoying bitch. Sorry. She should make another one of her pretentious videos that somehow everybody else is doing the arguing about truth thing wrong somehow. And she has a video called Atheist Challenge. I didn't even get where the atheism challenge part was. Totally incomprehensible. I don't, the video didn't make any sense. She's apparently paranoid that people are calling to think she's a feminist, so she made sure to say she's not a feminist. And she ended her video by saying, good luck, guys, or something like that. You know, so I mean, you're like, yeah, I guess you really don't get it, do you? The very fact that you're calling your fellow women guys, isn't that sort of evidence that, yeah, you sort of have been completely brainwashed, you know, into misunderstanding? I mean, really. I mean, guys is a generic term. Like, what? Shall I end the video by saying, see ya, guys, girls, gals? Yeah, I'll use the word gals. Yeah, sure. Like that is going to work. Well, anyway, I mean, that's just right there. It's already failed. But anyway, and she's such a harpy that, you know, how could she not be a feminist? She seems to be whining all the time about, you know, how insensitive people are to her feelings. You know, I could go through the past history and, you know, all the theatrics, and then, you know, and then she's doing commentary on drama on the internet. And when has she not been a drama whore? I mean, just you know, and this is like what you're saying. Can't you connect these dots? I mean, she, you know, the dots spelling "you are a silly drama whore" are just obvious. You don't even have to you don't have to do any really work to spell that out of the dots of the actual history. And you're just like, how could she not see that? How could she think she is something other than a drama whore? So, another amazing thing. Just anyway, but whatever. So it's just this general subject. So you got like old fan, you know, which is good. I mean, she's doing the artistic thing, and so she got some recognition for that, but it's in this weird way where she's trying to send a message, but it's like the way it is paraphrased, let's call it paraphrased by the pop culture, is not overtly mocking, but dismissive, at least, at minimum, just dismissive. And, you know, very little interest in taking the message seriously, or even the method, and both have merit, which is disappointing, but I mean, that's just, yeah, cliche simpleton. So they think they're doing the, hey, we're too cool, you know, we're too sexy for our underwear thing, but they really are demonstrating that they're just the opposite. They're too stupid for, you know, any kind of being a real person. You know, all they can be is a little cliche ego bot, you know, trying to find their gratification. So in that sense, you know, you just, you know, it's hard to say anything nice about, you know, about the poor construction, the poor methodology of the Tosh.0 types. So anyway, so it's probably a dead audience anyway, an audience that doesn't have much of a brain. Kind of like the Amazing Atheist audience. So anyway, then there's this other circumstance where, you know, I made a couple of these videos, but I made this video, Delusions Exist, you know, in response to Piro about this Mengia, whatever his name is, you know, the 5-minute, 5-hour energy drink guy, you know, the $4 billion for that. Anyway, who's doing his pretending to be a philanthropist of some kind and helping the world, and professing to be that he's serious about this, and yet his proposals for solutions have every, I mean, they're just overtly chicanery. I mean, it's just overtly chicanery. You know, like the exercise bike, creating any kind of useful amount of energy in any kind of, by any kind of rational economics. Like somehow you could make efficient energy by having people pedal bicycles, which makes no sense because the people, we people, have to consume calories. The calories have to be made by fertilizer. They have to be made by energy. So essentially you have to put energy in to get energy out of us. So we're not very good conversion sources. You have to steal energy from the universe, so to speak, where there's a bunch of excess energy. You could argue that the Earth plowing around the sun, that you could steal 0.00001% of that energy and not crash the Earth into the sun. So there's a whole bunch of extra energy there that you could take without damaging anything. But that's all you can do, is you have to take energy that was put someplace where there's more than enough of it, where it's not playing a critical role. But most energy, chemical energy, that kind of stuff, usually has to be put there. So for billions of years, plants and animals died and rotted in the ground and created oil. And so billions of years of feeding those batteries, and now we're just taking what was in those batteries. But the problem is we're doing it in such a manner where we're releasing all this carbon that's been stored up in those batteries, and that don't work. You have to scrub the carbon out of your waste, or you destroy your atmosphere. So that's the price we're paying for that battery depletion, that taking of energy. But again, there's no free rides. Well, anyway, the point is, so I make a video, and it gets, you know, the ratings are really poor on the video, and you're just saying, and you know, this, I mean, it should be a video that people say, ah, thank you for pointing this out, because yeah, this is really bad. You know, I said 2 million, it's 23 million views for this fake trailer of, you know, happy propaganda, all to serve a man's ego, clearly, and nothing else. I mean, you know, people just, it's just so obvious how you're being duped and abused, how the memes of the society are completely distorted by propaganda and lies. And when you point it out to these people, they don't want to hear it. And I guess that's, you know, I put down the words want, because that's what this is about. It's about what people want the dots to connect to, not what the obvious image is. And that's the real problem. I just pointed out that the obvious image is this is a fake, phony, fraud, capitalist pig whore fucker. And that's all he's into, is himself, just like Trump and the rest of these people. This has nothing to do with helping humanity. It just has to do with their own ego. And like I said, in this case, it was just so obvious that this isn't real science. This is a bunch of people that might have a little bit of scientific knowledge. He hires them into a cabal and basically says, look, if we can patent some kind of riggedy-rolly bullshit, you know, we can make a killing. You know, it's a venture capitalist game playing with technology and the needs of society, and it has nothing to do with serving the need. It just has to do with serving their own interest. And it's, you know, pitiful. Some asshole left a comment that was just so exemplary of the idiocy. Why don't I create a business? You know, because I'm not going to underpay employees and lie to customers. That's why. I can't compete with liars who don't pay their employees, can I? Is there any practical way I can compete with that? I don't think there is, asshole. But sure, you want to give me the financing, I'll do it, and all I guarantee is that you'll get your money back with maybe 3% interest. So if you're happy with a 3% interest gain per year, I could outcompete them, I'm quite sure, and actually pay my employees and not lie to customers. But I don't have a father with, you know, $1 billion so he can give me 200 million of it like Trump. So sorry, you know, give me Trump's 17th birthday gift, and yeah, I'll show you how to do it right. But just that whole argument, you know, you point out how somebody else is wrong, and instead of acknowledging that, oh yeah, that is a fraud, they sit there and point the gun at me like I'm the criminal because I didn't clean it up all myself. I didn't fix the world. And they have no perception that that's not how the world gets fixed. That's not how it gets done. You have to do it. People have to do it. People have to want it. More than one person. It's just so rude. You know, they break it, and then they point to me and say, why didn't I fix it? Fuck you. Anyway. So where else do I need to go here? So I don't know whether it's worth another video on that whole subject, but yeah, I was just surprised that people weren't more irritated and pissed off that this kind of propaganda is out there. That something overt chicanery is being sold as solutions to real hard problems. That should annoy you. It should really irritate you that people are giving you false hope and false answers. And instead, you're pissed off that somebody's pointing out that you've been duped. That seems to be what's more important to you, is maintaining some perception that, oh yeah, I just didn't notice that it was wrong. You know, you don't want to admit that you couldn't see it for yourself. Is that it? That embarrassment is too much to bear. So instead of just admitting that, oh yeah, I should have been able to figure that out on my own, you're going to, whatever, spite me for pointing it out. So maybe that's what it comes down to with the physics arguments too, and the rest of it. It's, you know, these people are just so, so, you know, it's just the word insane pops into my head because it's so insane. I mean, you have these idiots talking about perpetual energy and all kinds of weird-ass shit, and Tesla did this and Tesla did that. For the last 30 years of his life, Tesla couldn't make friend one. I really love that he fed pigeons every day, and he took care of them and did things for them. I mean, I love that he was just this gentle human being. But, I mean, frankly, you just can't be talking about how he had the most brilliant mind in the history of mankind. It's just silly. He obviously didn't know, he obviously, you know, he wasn't an unfamous person, and in spite of that fame, in spite of those past accomplishments, nobody was interested because he was such a fanatic, and he was so fucking wrong. I mean, he made claims that he just couldn't back up with a single bit of evidence. And, you know, people kind of got sick of that. They got sick of somebody telling me, oh yeah, tomorrow I'll prove it to you. Yeah, tomorrow I'll have it. I got it all written down. I just have to, you know, put the papers in the right order. I don't have the page numbers right yet. So promises never kept. Anyway, I mean, full of shit is all you can, I mean, that's the only conclusion you can come to. I mean, the guy was financed by people like J.P. Morgan. I mean, he had huge, important connections. And they even financed him later in life just to keep him so he wasn't totally embarrassed by having to eat garbage. But I mean, you just can't sit there and make the argument that this is the most brilliant mind in the history of mankind. I mean, he just didn't do anything. Didn't write anything. Wasn't even able to have a conversation with somebody else and explain it to them. You know, I mean, you know, it's just such a pile of shit to think he had some special knowledge, and that we're only now trying to catch up to Tesla's brilliant insight. I mean, it's just silly. And fundamentally, it's just wrong. I mean, you know, to sit there and, I mean, the quantum mechanics where you have, the wave theory is the part of quantum mechanics that's bullshit, and that's the part he thought was right. He killed the particle idea and just went totally obsessed with waves. I mean, the duality thing is nonsense. It's either is or it isn't. But I mean, the wave part of quantum mechanics is the bullshit part. And, you know, the part that isn't fundamental to the quanta. And, you know, the fact that he thought, that there was no matter, there was no real quanta, there was just a bunch of wavy shit. You know, electricity is everything. Everything's just electricity. You know, it's just so wrong. Like I said, I think it's just the fact that it was so wrong, and everybody realized no, that just isn't going to work. But anyway, moving on. I mean, it's another subject, but again, I just think that I have connected quite a few of the dots when it comes to explaining how particle theory of force transmission is perfectly lucid, perfectly logical and rational, perfectly workable with experimental facts, and you know, the hostility is just amazing. But anyway, so that's the problem with the human race. I mean, you know, to be serious, again, it's all preachy. Like somehow we can resolve this in some way, something in the manner of conversation. But you can't. All you can do is make better arguments, and the people who can recognize those better arguments have to support them, and they have to do something in the world besides just saying, well, let somebody else fix it. So there's a point where they have to be able to organize, and your enemies often do have to be smited. It comes to that because what they believe is so obnoxiously stupid, and they are intractable in their devotion. I mean, really, it's 2015. Like I said, we've landed on the moon. We've sent probes to Pluto. And there's a whole billions of people on this planet right now, you know, praying to Allah or some other bullshit. And you're just saying, that game is so fucking over. It's just so fucking over. How could they have devotion to this bullshit? Why this obnoxious irrationality? This obnoxious refusal to accept evidence? And the answer is because fundamentally I think humans have been creating a genetic idiocracy. The dumbest, the stupidest, the most psychotic are the ones that breed the most. And I think the human race is basically a psychotic asshole. I mean, it's made itself genetically incapable of being rational. You know, it's getting there anyway. Fast on the road. So the odds of rational conversation to exercise something called persuasion may have passed. But the other problem is the option of violent solution has also passed. I mean, where you can actually win. Exercising violence will likely, resorting to it, will likely just be a concession. You'll be signing your own death warrant. The bullet will go all the way around and come back and shoot you in the head. You'll be hoisted on your own bad answer petard. Yeah, okay. So anyway, I want to get to this nihilist shit because it's just such a funny subject. So, you know, funny in the sense that it has no, the logic is so convoluted. So this guy makes these arguments that, okay, it's all subjective and we can't prove anything. I'll play like that. I didn't play this. I haven't heard the second half of this, but the first half is just the same old mush we've heard before. We can't prove anything, and therefore there isn't any truth, because we can't prove it in some sort of absolute sense. And again, I would argue that all you need is beyond reasonable contention or reasonable dispute. The evidence is all in one, focused on one conclusion, and there's absolutely no evidence or no reason to think there's any alternative explanation. Now, I think the evidence for evolution is decisive, complete, enough. It's not rationally disputable. You can only irrationally dispute the evidence. And that's where we came from, and we understand the whole method. Like I said, we have clear descriptions of why our psychology is the way it is. Clear, connect the dot reasons why we psychologically love certain things, and the desire for sex is that it leads to reproduction. All these, the connect the dots between sex and reproduction, this and this, and our psychology devotions, and all of those things are illustrated. The whole alpha syndrome and how that is conducive to creating stronger genetic material, and these are dots that are there to be connected, and there's no alternative explanation. It just answers the question. It's a motivational mechanism and then a processing mechanism, but it's all reflexes, both of them. We're just machines, essentially. We're just machines running two programs, one motivational and one solve the problem of our motivation, our sensibilities. So, yeah. So, so this guy is just such it's one of these weird. Here I am. I'm a nihilist, and yet I wish to convert other people's subjective perception, and that wish in itself is like, well, where did that come from? You don't believe your own judgments or have any merit, so you think your subjective opinions are made up nonsense, that they have no correlation to anything called reality. That's his perception, and yet he wishes to impose them on other people. And you're just saying, well, why would if I didn't believe my subjective impressions were correlated to reality, then why would I impose them on somebody? Where would that need manifest from if I thought they were just purely subjective? That doesn't make any sense. So he's vegan or whatever, or vegetarian anyway, arguing in defense of the welfare of animals and calling that a subjective value judgment. Not even argue that's not subjective value judgment, it's a rational value judgment, because you've connected the dots and recognized that animals suffer. And there's no other reason. If I took the suffering away from the animals, you would not think there's subjectively anything wrong with doing anything to them. If they could not manifest a negative sensation, you wouldn't think there's any problem. So quite obviously you've conceded the existence of suffering and cruelty and meaning something, having meaning. And to say that you're unconvinced that there's such a thing as that suffering as you experience it is a bad thing. I think you're quite convinced that you can tell the difference between pain and pleasure, and you know quite completely that it's better for you to feel good than to feel bad, to have good sensations rather than bad sensations. And all you've done is the simple logic of accepting the fact that the other living things are doing exactly the same thing, having good sensations and bad sensations, and you've logically deduced that yes, it's the same truth that applies to me applies to them. And now then you're pretending that's just subjective nonsense that has no hope of being the truth. And that statement is just an obnoxious way of saying I don't like to play by these rules. There's some element of these rules that'll somehow inconvenience me. So some element of them, maybe they'll help you get laid. So maybe you're a vegetarian because you think it'll get you laid or some other kind of thing. But the fact that you would flush that entire understanding into some toilet, but at the same time, like again, be aggressive in arguing that I have to somehow changing other people is a good thing, when you have no evidence that what you believe is right. How could that possibly, like I said, where would that manifest from except from your own ego or something? What reason would I have? If I didn't believe something was really bad, what reason would I have to do anything about it? Why would I inconvenience myself with the burden of convincing somebody else of something I didn't believe to be true? Why would I do that? So it just doesn't make any sense to me. Logically, it's vacant. Alright. Alright, so this whole argument is based on this idea of subjective and objective. Again, and all we're really arguing is just whether there's enough evidence to convict, to declare this as a truth. And I'm arguing that, yes, there's plenty of evidence, and the only thing that gets in the way of that evidence being decisive is the fact that you can create a fable. You can create a completely fake construct of extra dots and make everything look like Bugs Bunny. So any arrangement of dots, by adding extra dots, you can turn it into Bugs Bunny. You know, and that's just, but there's no reason to think that adding those fake dots somehow in any way degrades the reality of the real dots and that you've somehow improved. There's every bit of evidence that all that is cheating. Yes, you're taking advantage of the fact that you're allowed to cheat. Yeah, but that's it. But it's completely dishonest. It's cheating. You create fake. The universe was created Thursday. Well, the universe was created Wednesday. The universe was created 5 minutes ago. The universe is a matrix and blah, blah. You're just making that shit up. No, zero evidence that that's the truth. You're just making it up because you can make it conform to the dots that exist and turn them into Bugs Bunny. So it's just like the God delusion. It's just a fairy tale, and then you're saying, prove that the fairy tale isn't true. All I can do is prove that the notion, your necessity of adding these fake dots is fake. There's no reason to think the universe was created Thursday. There's no evidence it was created Thursday. So how is it relevant? There's no reason to think it is anything other than what it appears to be, that the Grand Canyon was created slowly and progressively over hundreds of millions of years. Well, millions of years. That's it. There's no reason to think otherwise. There's no evidence for any alternative explanation. You know. Anyway. Alright, just trying to change not real subjective values. Yeah, again, so why would you want to change subjective values? If you don't think your values are real, if you don't think when you feel uneasy or uncomfortable because you understand something. Like I said, I'm only going to feel uncomfortable about somebody squishing something or stomping on something if I understand that it feels and that its sensations are somehow analogizable to my own. So, you know, in a sense, I'm sensing their condition, feeling their pain, in the sense that I'm understanding it, I'm imagining it as if it were my pain. And that's a perfectly logical thing to do. It's absolutely necessary to the function of logic to recognize when something is a similar condition. And then to recognize that, well, when the condition's happening to me, I'm certainly capable of understanding how that's not a good thing. And that essentially is all you're doing. It's all empathy's built out of, or compassion, or any of this stuff is really a self-interest. A kind of, I sense the badness of it. And you sense it by imagining it. Anyway. Alright, so he basically says cruelty isn't bad or wrong intrinsically. And you're just, again, the argument isn't really whether cruelty is bad intrinsically. The argument is wasted suffering bad intrinsically? Just as you know your suffering wasted would be intrinsically bad. Clearly I could make an argument where, yes, if I could torture you to prevent 100 other people from being tortured, it would probably be economically sensible to say it's a good thing to torture you. But the truth is, torture is bad. And this is only a lesser of evils of a choice. None of these choices are good. 100 people torture or one person torture, those are both bad. And all I'm doing is choosing the less bad. But you would know the badness of the torture, and if it's happening to you or if it's happening to somebody else, and you've acknowledged that. So all you're doing is pretending. I'm going to use this word subjective and say it doesn't have any connection to reality. I know it, but I'll just pretend it's not the truth. But why? And what's your incentive to do that except to be counter for the sake of it, counterculture for the sake of it. I mean, this is like a child who's, you know, rejecting the advice of a parent and then doing exactly the opposite just to spite them. You're spiting the truth merely because some people throughout history have used the notion of truth in some sort of negative or abusive manner to do bad things. It's like me blaming all science because some billionaire comes up with a bunch of fake lies and propaganda. So therefore, because a bad billionaire can bribe scientists out of their integrity and get them to sell crap for money, therefore all science is bad. It would be as childish as that, and that's all you're doing with this nonsense. Alright. So again, the argument really is there, first, are the dots there to be connected? Is there evidence that, yeah, you just connect the dots? It's an obvious answer. And then the secondary argument is, when there's not that many dots, when it isn't quite clear, is there an alternative theory? Is there some other way to connect the dots without creating fake dots? Or completely silly fake dots? I mean, fake dots that have nothing to do with reality, nothing to do with a fact. And I think by those two tests, the first test being, well, what is it? Come on, just connect them. Be honest, be fair to the truth, to the facts. And the second argument is it possible? Is something else possible, even, that doesn't require you to add Bugs Bunny to the recipe? And I'd argue that most of these questions can be answered quite absolutely, beyond a reasonable contention. I don't think you can reasonably make a reasonable argument explaining how suffering is irrelevant. That it doesn't have all over it the notion of bad. Intrinsic, fundamental to it. I don't think there's a reasonable argument. There's just an emphatic, dogmatic statement by you that because it's in a brain, the idea is in a brain, somehow the idea of the truth isn't somehow truth. No, it's duplicating reality.
I think this is the thing most people would take an objection to, which is where I say, I mean, once the animals are dead, it's as if they never even existed in the first place to their consciousness. And what I mean by this is just, when you're dead, you can't perceive anything.
Right, but that doesn't undo while you were alive. So again, it's just kind of silly to say that the Holocaust is now, you can negate the significance of all negative events by just saying they're in the past. That doesn't negate them. They still happened. Things had to experience them. The pain was still real, just as real as this present. All presents are real in the moment they happen. And it's just silly to say that because there's some point where they're not happening anymore, that they didn't happen. Of course they did, and of course they were real.
So, you know, to each man the universe ends upon his death, basically. So
yeah, and what kind of man would think that way? You'd have to be an idiot. So, again, you're just saying, okay, here's a stupid cliche, a little talkyism. Does it really have any sensible integrity for any rational, sentient being in the universe? For like an alien on Mars, if there was an alien on Mars, it would be okay for him to think you know, that the universe stops existing when he stops existing? No, we would obviously object here on Earth and say, no, you don't call it. Okay, the universe doesn't come and go because you say so. What are you, insane? You're not evolution. You're not billions of years. You're not the universe, idiot. You're a couple of eyeballs. You're a camera observing the universe. How the hell could you nonsensically think the universe is what comes through your lens? I mean, if we gave cameras some sort of iPod, smartphone brain, would it really be rational for the camera to say only what comes through my lens is reality? No, we would inform the camera you're an idiot.
Although the universe doesn't actually end when you die, as far as you're concerned, sorry, I have a cold. as far as you're concerned, it may as well end when you die because you can't experience it.
Well, again, most of my perceptions of reality aren't dependent on me perceiving my experience. Obviously, my experiences, I don't even have to think about them. And so most of my thinking, most of my thoughts, most of my ideas have to do with what's going to happen in the future or what's happening to other beings now in the present. So their reality doesn't end. Yes, my seeing them ends, but that's it. It'd be, again, it's just silly to say, okay, if I poke my own eyeballs out, that somehow I've prevented that from existing. That would be silly.
Anymore. So, yeah, that's generally what I think about a lot of the whole nihilism thing. It's like when you realise that humanity is just temporary. So we are probably going to be extinct one day, and I say probably because obviously with nihilism you can never be sure.
Yeah, well, again, you spent some time in here talking about vegetarianism and writing a comment to somebody else about how he feels some need to change people's subjective perception into appreciating the pain and suffering of animals, and now he's talking like, well, it all doesn't matter because humans won't exist. Sentient organisms have existed for perhaps 1 billion years. 500 million anyway. 500 million years. You think that's nothing? That's no amount of time? I mean, if you had to consciously experience all those conscious lives, I think you'd realize it's a hell of a long time. A hell of a lot of suffering.
But, scientists estimate, the sun eventually is going to expand out and swallow Mercury and Venus and cook all life on Earth, and eventually the whole solar system will become inhabitable.
Yeah, whatever. We don't even have to wait for that. There's going to be catastrophic problems with the whole magnosphere and the radiation and all that stuff long before all this expansion of the sun takes place. So, yeah, we'll be cooked long before that happens.
Manage to escape the solar system, eventually the universe is going to die.
Again, all this stuff seems quite irrelevant. It's like saying that, if there's 10 cancer patients and I can't cure all 10 of them, that there's no point in curing one of them. I mean, this argument that somehow, it doesn't matter if you mitigate against even 1 year of it, or if you had cancer and your therapy would be 4 years long or 5 years long, I think you'd be damn grateful to get rid of one of those years. If you were in prison and I could take a year off your sentence, I think especially if you were in the year right before that last year, you'd be damn grateful not to be doing that extra year.
I hate death. So really, once you realise that human civilization and existence is only temporary, then I start to ask the question, like, when all evidence that...
I just don't understand how that could possibly negate the meaning of our sensual experience and the pain and suffering that's been endured on this planet. How does that negate the Holocaust victim? I mean, how? How does it negate their experience? How does it change it one bit whether human beings existed for 1 trillion years or for 5 years? How does it change it any?
Humanity ever existed is gone. So when we're extinct and there's no evidence that we ever were, then it's almost as if that we never existed in the first place, because we don't exist.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand that. I can't imagine how you make it go away that way. How just saying it ended means it never happened. I just don't understand. So a horse race has a starting line, has a finish line. The horses cross the finish line. Therefore, the race never took place. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't make it. time is linear. The thing happened. I mean, I can't, for the life of me, understand how you negate the existence of something by saying that it has a temporary, or it's not somehow permanent. That somehow impermanence means whether it happens or not, whether it has a reality. And I don't see how it changes it at all.
It's then, and there's no sentient being to put value on our experience.
Well, again, you really think I sit here saying to myself, my feelings only have meaning if somebody else tells me they do. I need somebody else to tell me whether I feel good or bad. I need them to see me suffer, or I don't really suffer. You really think I think that way, or I could possibly think that way? How could I possibly think that way? If I was alone in the universe, you're saying I somehow wouldn't be able to tell whether I was feeling good or feeling bad, because there's nobody else to tell me how I feel? Bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah, there's just nothing that's going to look around and say, well, these humans were here, and this suffering and life stuff happened.
So again, he says that it's all about whether or not what a human perceives, and if a human doesn't perceive the equation doesn't exist. So if there's two peaks, mountain peaks on the moon or something, the two mountain peaks don't exist if humans never saw them. They're not two. There's not two of them. No, there's no truth until a human says it's a truth. I mean, why would I think that way? Why would I think that the truth is dependent on humans acknowledging it, or claiming it, or declaring it? Again, you don't think dinosaurs were having sensitive, sensual experiences before humans showed up. So when the humans weren't here, the dinosaurs weren't feeling, because humans weren't here to say they were feeling. Does that make any sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know, I find it hard to just explain this. Yeah, I just hope you'll get my explanation there.
Yeah, no chance. I don't get any of it. It just sounds like, you're not a nihilist, you're just a rejectionist. You're willfully saying, I want to evade a responsibility, accountability, and any association perhaps with a whole realm of human philosophy that I would concede, I would agree with you that most human beings through most time in history have wrongly described reality. But it's there to be accurately described, and there is a rational description of our circumstance. And this is just idiotic for you to sit there and draw this picture of reality and pretend, okay, that you can describe how things physically move, and you can describe what color they were, and you can describe lots of things, and you're just going to deny the existence of the most important element, which is the fact that they're manifesting through a big complex neural network a sensual experience that has intrinsically built into it the quality of good and bad, feeling good, feeling bad, obnoxious and comforting, comfortable, uncomfortable, and that this is intrinsically valuable, that it's intrinsically bad for something to feel bad. To deny that simple truth, I mean, it's so fucking obvious. You personally experienced it, and then you disclaim that, no, my personal experience as a sentient being has no applicability to the billions, trillions of other sensitive creatures on planet Earth, and the trillions that have existed before me. Why would I disconnect myself from that lineage, from that pool, and presume that somehow I'm really having feelings and they're really not? Sorry, can't make any sense of that at all. So anyway, enough of this already. I could finish it, but there's no. These arguments aren't arguments. I can only honestly say that, really, do you think I'm going to be convinced by this nonsense that my feelings don't matter, that I might as well torture myself because there's no difference between being tortured and feeling good? You really think you're going to convince me that it's just a subjective, idiotic judgment that I've been making, that my bad feelings are bad? That I somehow been fooled and they're just as good? I might as well be tortured, no real big difference? That's the consequence of this nonsense you're saying, is that somehow it doesn't matter, that I might as well be tortured because the human race won't exist 1,000 years from now, so you might as well just torture me. I might as well spend the next 10 years in horrible, awful, torturous pain as be comfortable. Might as well. No difference. Bullshit. No value difference. Bullshit. I mean, it's just disgustingly stupid for me to think. Why would I think that? Have feeling, being conscious. How could I possibly think that? How could that possibly be rational? You're really telling me that for your consciousness, you really can't tell the difference. That, you know, maybe being tortured is fun, and I'm just not getting it. Fuck. Never mind. Too stupid. Why would I make up a fantasy where torture isn't really bad? It would have to be a lie. There's no dot I can connect to make that make sense. There's no evidentially dot in the universe anywhere that could possibly make it make sense to me that sensations I actually experience, and you're going to tell me I can't tell the difference. Really. That I'm just being a bigot against suffering. I'm not getting how great it is. Fuck. You got some sort of psychiatric problem that's compelling you to play a game. But it's just a game. It's just absolute bullshit. The truth isn't that complicated, and frankly you're sensually experiencing the substance of it every day. You're having good feelings and bad feelings, and they're quite obviously value loaded, and you know it.